If you've been watching the WNBA over the last couple of weeks, you already know the new-look Chicago Sky have been a story for all the wrong reasons. And last night, that story got even louder when the Indiana Fever came into town and beat them in overtime on a Thursday night. But the game itself isn't really what everybody's talking about today. What everybody's talking about is what got said before that game, and what got said about a week earlier. Because Skylar Diggins decided to take her frustration public. And then a legend, the original C-squared, Cynthia Cooper, was asked about it on the broadcast and did not hold back one bit. So let me set the table for you, because the contrast between these two moments tells you almost everything about how this league has changed. Skylar Diggins, if you remember, was with the Seattle Storm before this season. Now she's the leader of this rebuilt Chicago Sky. And about 5 days ago, she sat down at a post-game press conference next to her teammate Ariel Atkins, hood up, looking every bit as deflated as the team has played. And she let it all out. She talked about needing more maturity and more leadership, on the floor and off it, from the players and from the staff. She talked about wanting more connectivity. And here's the part that stuck with people. She said if this were just one bad night against one team, she would understand it. But it's become a trend, and that it has been, in her words, an extremely frustrating experience. She made it clear she's not going anywhere and that she believes the group can keep getting better. But the connective tissue, the accountability, the thing that turns a roster into a team, just isn't there yet. She even pointed at the coaching, not by screaming about it, but by making it clear that some of those questions weren't hers to answer. And she said all of it on the record, with the cameras rolling, which is the detail that matters most. Now I want to be fair to her situation, because anybody who walked into this Chicago project should have expected growing pains. This is a roster that was assembled with real hope and then gutted by injuries almost immediately. A key piece they were counting on went down with a knee injury before she ever got going. Dejanai Carrington has been banged up and was sitting on the bench during the Indiana game, and the lineup has been shuffled all year long. So Skylar's competitive fire makes sense. Anybody who has watched her play, whether it's in the WNBA or anywhere else, knows she competes at a level most people simply don't reach. And when you're wired like that, losing eats at you. The issue isn't that she's frustrated, the issue is where she chose to say it. And that is exactly where Cynthia Cooper comes in. Because before the Sky played the Fever, Cooper was on the broadcast alongside Swin Cash, and they were asked directly about Skylar's comments and about everything going on in Chicago. And Cooper, who is one of the greatest to ever do it, looked right at it and said she does not condone any player or any coach walking into a press conference and sounding off. She said you don't play with the media, you play with your teammates in that locker room. Those hard conversations about what the team needs to do to get better. Those happen face to face, behind closed doors. You come together first, and then you become champions. And then she dropped the line that lit up the whole segment. Swin Cash had offered a softer take, and I'll get to that. But when the back and forth got to the coaching, and somebody suggested those questions should just go to the head coach, Cooper basically said she would never have walked into a post-game press conference and pointed everybody toward her coach. That's not what we did, she said. And then she said, that's why we won 4 championships. And honestly, all you could do was sit there and go, oh. Because she's right, and she earned the right to say it. This is a woman who won 4 straight titles with the Houston Comets under Van Chancellor. When she talks about what a championship locker room is supposed to sound like, she's not theorizing, she lived it, at the very top, more than once. Now let me give you Swin Cash's side too, because she wasn't wrong either. Swin said she understood exactly what Cooper was saying, but she wanted to look at the other side of it. When players sign in Chicago, a lot of them talk openly about the internal troubles that franchise has had, and Skylar came there specifically wanting to change the culture. How that actually plays out is still to be determined, and Swin made a smart point. It's early in the season, so the real tell isn't the press conference, it's how the team responded on the floor after those comments. Was that Skylar lighting a fire under everybody? Or wasn't it? That's a fair thing to ask, and it's worth saying that an overtime loss to the Fever is exactly the kind of game a genuinely connected team finds a way to close out. and they didn't. So that question is still wide open. But when the conversation pushed toward whether Skylar should have to back up what she said about the coaching, Swin deflected, and she said that's a question for Coach Tyler, meaning Tyler Marsh, and that's the exact moment Cooper could not contain herself. You could see it all over her face. She could not wait to respond, because the idea of punting to your coach in a press conference is the opposite of everything she stood for. So here's what I actually want to talk about, because this is bigger than one press conference. A lot of people today do not know how to handle voices like Cynthia Cooper and voices like Candace Parker, CC and CP, two of the most accomplished people the women's game has ever produced. Candace Parker is a champion, a college champion who played at Tennessee under the legendary Pat Summitt, and now she co-hosts Post Moves with Aaliyah Boston. And Candace has said more than once that we need to stop tiptoeing around women's sports. Her point is simple. If a player smokes an easy layup, you are allowed to call it what it is. We do it in men's sports all the time, every single night, and nobody flinches. We say we want women's basketball to be taken seriously, and then we don't want the critique that comes with being taken seriously. And you genuinely cannot have it both ways. And because she's that honest, she takes a lot of flack. When she's made reasonable comments about injuries, or measured comments about a player like Paige Bikers, people come after her, because today's fans aren't used to anybody being this direct. So when Cynthia Cooper says what she said, a chunk of the audience doesn't know how to process it. They hear, if you're that frustrated with your teammates, why isn't that a conversation you're having privately? And instead of sitting with it, they bristle. And notice the double standard while we're here. Most of the commentators working these games right now would not have said a word about Skylar airing it out. They wouldn't have told her to keep it in-house. The one exception, and we've all seen it play out over and over, is when the subject is Caitlin Clark. When it's about Caitlin Clark, plenty of them line up to pile on. But with Skylar, oh, she's just fired up, she's passionate, leave her alone. I'm not saying that to drag Skylar at all. I'm saying it because the inconsistency is the whole point, and the inconsistency is what people are tired of. And here is where I land, because I actually love the old-school mentality Cooper is bringing back. Wanting to win at the highest level requires a certain culture, and that culture is not soft. It does not mean you can't be real. It does not mean you can't be vulnerable. It does not mean you can't walk up to your teammates and tell them you need more from them. And it does not mean you can't have a hard, honest conversation with your coach. It means there's a way to do all of that. There's a way that builds respect instead of division. And that respect is exactly what leads to championships. But when every camera is on, and every microphone is hot, and everybody knows everything the second it's said, airing your grievances in public doesn't rally a team. It splits one right down the middle. We saw something just like it last season, when a player took her issues straight to the media and called out her teammates. And that locker room was absolutely fit to be tied, because there's a right way and a wrong way, and the difference is enormous. So this is why I appreciate having people like Cynthia Cooper and Candace Parker on these broadcasts. They've been there, they've done it at the highest level, and they're not bought and paid for. They'll tell you the truth instead of pussyfooting around and pretending accountability is a dirty word. And what I would genuinely love to see is more of these proven winners, people of real character, brought in to speak into these players' lives, and players humble enough to actually listen. Coaches who can hear hard things from people who've won it all, and players with a teachable, coachable spirit. Everybody comes out better when that happens. That is so much healthier than the world where we just smile and say it's fine. Don't worry about the missed layup. Say whatever you want about whoever you want. No, you need people in the room who will look you in the eye and tell you, I'm not here to flatter you. Here's what it actually takes to win at this level. Cynthia Cooper is exactly that voice. And for now we get to hear her call these games and give it to us straight, before and after the final buzzer. To me, she's the absolute GOAT, and I'll take her honesty over the tiptoeing every single time. That's my thought for today. Sports and culture. Always connected. I'll catch you next time.